Welcome back to episode 2 of Bible Time with Larry and Pam.
Hello.
This week we'll be talking about sin and salvation. Well, hey, this is Bible Time with Larry, and Pam's with me. Pam's my lovely wife. This week we will be talking about sin and salvation. But first, we want to address a few things from our first video. What do you think about that? We learned some things.
I think we're all thumbs in the technology department.
Yeah, a bit. I don't know if anybody noticed. I noticed, just to give out a secret, we do have a green screen behind us. The backdrop is not our real house. For some of you who thought it was, thank you. But no, it's not.
It's a cute studio, isn't it?
And one thing we didn't think about was the plants in front were green. And when you have a green screen, it just looks funny. So the plants looked a little dead. That's what I thought.
Yeah. They looked dried, maybe.
Dried, dead plants.
They were actually a very pretty green plant, but
yeah, and you could tell we're just new at this because, like the slideshow we did, not thinking about the size difference from seeing it on a monitor to what it's going to look like on a phone, it didn't work. So sorry about that. We're working on that, but be patient with us.
It was kind of a communication thing too, but.
Well, yeah, we have to, that's the thing I was thinking about with doing these videos. It's not just, what I imagined was I would just stand up here and talk, and then that was it.
And have a slideshow with things going or something.
No, I was going to have a whiteboard. That's too technical for me.
Oh, okay. You really were going to go old school.
Yeah. I didn't think about what's involved to make a good video. You need I learned you need an intro, an outro, a thumbnail, all these things. I'm like, I don't even know what any of that is. So
that we'd be super lost without Joshua.
Yeah. So like the slideshow, things like that. We're working on it, so we will get better. Also, we had a consultant. Yes, not the same consultant as the Mike Charleston show, just to be clear, but
a good one.
A good one.
Still another good one.
A little bit of experience with a podcast show, so he helped us out. He did say, this was a shock to me, that I did come across a little condescending.
What? He said you were condescending?
I know. I was shocked. For those of you who don't know, condescending means talking down to people.
It is kind of a big word.
It is a big word. That's a joke. Just joking. Anyway. But he did help us out with some things. So
I didn't feel like you were condescending, but
I do get a little intense sometimes, and a little.
I know you, and I know that's not your condescending voice.
Yeah. Anyway, well, moving on. All right, anything else on that one?
I think we covered that.
All right.
We're going to try to get better.
Yeah. Well, this one, we're trying to keep the show kind of under 45 minutes, half hour, something like that. Yeah. So the Bible time, the messages will be short. So just so you know, they won't go into too much detail, which is good and bad, but there's a lot of other information out there. But so this week, we're going to talk about sin and salvation.
Okay.
And may be thinking, well, why? How do they go together? And that's a
good question.
It is a good question. What is sin?
That's a good question, too.
Yeah.
Define your terms.
Define your terms. So what do you think sin would mean?
Boy, you really could go all over that, couldn't you? I would say doing wrong would be a basic
that's a
definition.
Good,
However, I would think conscience has to play in there too, because if you don't know that you're doing wrong, is that sin?
Right. I was going to say, when you said doing wrong according to who?
Right.
Or what?
Yeah. Is there a Merriam-Webster definition I could look at or something?
I looked at it. If you look at the 1828, which I recommend, by the way, look, when you want to define Bible terms and stuff, go to the 1828 Webster's Dictionary. It gives a much better detailed definition of some of these words. But just the short version of sin. Sin is a violation of a moral law or a divine command. Also, a violation, like you mentioned, your own conscience. We know within ourselves what to do, and oftentimes we choose not to do that. And when we violate that within ourselves, that becomes sin. It becomes sin to us. So when we look at the first sin, now the first, because if I say first sin, some of you are going to say, well, what about Lucifer and pride? Well, pride was the first sin, I would say. But we look in the garden, the first sin came when Adam and Eve ate of the fruit. Specifically, Eve, she was tempted of the devil. But when you look at sin, what is it? And we say it's a violation of our conscience or a violation of divine law. But what it comes down to is basically, and a lot of issues in humanity come down to just sheer selfishness. We want what we want, and we want it when we want it. So, and if you look at the story, the Garden of Eden in Genesis chapter 3, when the serpent came, he deceived her in a sense that he appealed to her emotions. And all temptations can come down to three things. Do you know what those are? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Is that the verse that says something about the pride of life or pride of the eyes, lust of the flesh?
You're getting there. Yeah.
I know,
I know
I'm
a little mixed up there.
that, but there's
the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life.
There we go.
Yeah. So if you read that, she looked at the fruit, saw that it was good to eat, saw that it could make one wise. So, and that's what the promise was from the serpent, was that your eyes will be open and you will be as one of the gods, knowing both good and evil. By the way, that wasn't necessarily a lie, because once they ate of it, they did know. Their eyes were open and they knew good and evil, right? So it wasn't, but they weren't supposed to learn that lesson at that time. They jumped ahead. They were supposed to learn obedience through faith, because God said don't eat. So that's the picture of sin, is that we want what we want when we want it. There's another interesting story. I'm going to get the names wrong because this just came to mind, was Tamar.
Okay.
Absalom's half sister, perhaps, or maybe that was his sister, and then her half brother basically wanted to marry her, but he took her, and she tried to plead with him to ask their father, and he would have granted a marriage, but he wanted what he wanted when he wanted it, and so that became a violation of the law. And that's what we all do. We all are tempted in a sense, like Eve. We're faced with something and we know the right thing to do, but sometimes we say, well, I just don't feel like it, or this will make me feel good, but we know it's wrong and we should not do it, and it becomes a sin. And
it didn't end well for him.
Right. Yeah, it didn't. Yeah. That story with Absalom. And
if you don't know that story, want to read that one.
Yeah, look it up. And that's usually what happens in that story. Is a good picture when you want something that you know, well, maybe, and perhaps you can have, but you go about it the wrong way, it becomes something that you regret. And like Adam and Eve, the tree the fruit probably did look good to eat. It probably, it had those properties, but they were commanded not to. So in this case, they had a divine command: do not eat. Yeah. It was a moral test for them to test their moral character. You see, because Adam and Eve were perfect, but they weren't morally tried. They had, and to have moral character, it's sort of like experience. How do you get experience?
By experience.
Yeah. I remember after I graduated college, I tried to get a job in the field I graduated in, and everybody that I applied to, they wanted either a master's degree or 3 years experience. I'm like, how am I going to get experience and if I don't have experience?
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend another 3 years and a whole bunch of money getting a master's degree, so I gave up on that career, which, anyway. But to get to the point, so Adam and Eve, he wasn't tricked. He made a conscious decision to eat the fruit. knowing what the command was, because God gave the command to him directly. So he made a conscious decision to disobey. Eve, you could say, well, she was deceived. But what that did was it separated them from God, because they violated a certain trust, I would say. They disobeyed his command, and they went ahead and ate. Eve was deceived. Adam wasn't. But then when you see when God confronts them, it's kind of interesting. What did Adam and Eve do? The serpent didn't do this, but Adam and Eve did. They blamed somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that's usually what sin brings us to, is where we recognize we're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
But we don't want to take responsibility. We want to blame others. And this is a problem. You see this in theology a lot, and I don't want to get into this too much, but when you, like, some will say, well, we're in bondage to sin, or it's our sinful nature, or we're in the flesh. It's passing the buck and not taking responsibility. Adam, he said, it's that woman you gave me. So he blamed Eve and God, because he blamed God. He said, if you hadn't given me the woman, I wouldn't be in this spot. Eve blamed the serpent that he deceived her, but she still had a choice. So it comes down to sin comes down to a choice. Now you might say, well, it's hard, we live in fleshly bodies, and that's true. So that brings us into the salvation point, because we're trapped in a fleshly body that has these desires. These desires, by the way, are created by God. A desire for food, intimacy, pleasure. Those things are given to us by God. We seek those kind of characters within himself. Mm-hmm. And so since we're created in his image, we have those same drives, and so same desires. And they're not necessarily wrong. It's what we do with them that makes them wrong. For example, the drive for intimacy, that's not wrong. It's wrong if you go about it the wrong way, outside of the parameters that God set up. Then it becomes sin, and it becomes bondage and a trap. The desire for pleasure, that's not necessarily wrong. It's what we do with it. So the sin becomes, we're trapped in a fleshly body that has like a motor with no governor. Now, we talked about this the other night. A governor is in a motor, and an engine. It's a device you put on there that no matter how far you press the gas pedal, you're only going to go so fast. When Adam and Eve were created, they had the governor, the presence of the Holy Spirit. When they disobeyed, they lost that connection. And mankind has been trying to get that back ever since. That's why you see religions all throughout the world of different types. And you look at all the different types of religions around the world, they're actually basically the same thing. It's man trying to do something to earn his way back to God. And so that brings us into, now we know what sin is and how destructive it is. You look at the world, people may say, well, nobody's going to be perfect. And this is kind of the cool thing what God did. So when God prophesied in the Old Testament that the Messiah would come, Jesus would be born of a virgin, Mary, he had to be of a man, because it was man who sinned and man had to pay. It was so, and way back in the Old Testament, God said, without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin. So, it was man's blood, or man's sin, so therefore man should pay. And that's where the redemption comes into, because now we needed somebody outside of ourselves. See, because we could look at God and say, God, you created us with these desires. You don't know what it's like to live in a fleshly body. And God would have to say, I agree, because God is not flesh, he's spirit, and he's perfect, and he's holy. And so he's not subject to the same temptations we are. And I don't mean to belittle God. I'm just saying that's just the fact. It's because we're different. We're below God. So we could say, in a defense, if I was a defense attorney, I would say, you created me this way, and now you don't know what it's like. But now God can say, well, you're right, I don't. But my son Jesus Christ does, because he lived as a man and he overcame sin. So he did something no man was able to do ever.
Amen.
Faced the same temptations that Eve faced, but yet he overcame. So he became our substitute. And this is the cool thing in the Garden of Eden. In that story, so Adam and Eve, they sinned. They hid themselves. They tried to clothe themselves with fig leaves. And God, as he's custom, it says he came looking for him. And finally Adam showed up and he said, well, I hid myself because I was naked. And God said, who told you were naked? Did you eat of the fruit I told you not to? Yeah. So they stood before God guilty, and they tried to offer up a lame defense. It wasn't very good, but it was still a defense, and it wasn't very good. So they stood there condemned and guilty before God, waiting for their judgment, because the judgment was, the day you eat thereof, you shall surely die. Mm-hmm. So that was, they gave the law, the punishment, they violated the law, and they're waiting for the punishment. So it's sort of, think of like a courtroom. You go before the judge, you give your defense, and the verdict is you're guilty. And you already know what the punishment is, and now you're just waiting for that judgment to fall. But something happens. God didn't execute them like he said. Instead, he gave a substitute. It says he clothed them with skins. Where did he get the skins from? They came from an animal. I think, and it seems logical that it was a lamb. So in essence, so they're covered in this lambskin. So here's the picture of God's plan right there in the garden, was that he would redeem mankind with a substitute. And so they were in essence covered with the skins of the animal. The blood of the animal was shed. They were covered. So in essence, you could say they were baptized into that animal. And so when God saw them, he saw the skins of the animal, knowing that then the blood that was required was somewhat fulfilled, but not completely, because it wasn't a man. And then they could be spared. Mm-hmm. Now, some may say, well, they died spiritually because they didn't die that day. Well, if you read on, God tells us why they didn't die that day. One was because a substitute was put in their place, which is the picture of the gospel. Jesus was our substitute to save us from the fleshly bodies and to take us out of the bondage of the flesh that we're in and give us the power, again, to overcome sin. It says he removed the tree of life so that they wouldn't eat of it and live forever. So that's why they eventually got old and died. But the salvation there is we needed something outside of ourselves to do something that we are incapable of doing, because God gave. So by the time Jesus came, you're looking at almost 4,000 years of human history, and not one man was able to withstand the temptation. It took Jesus, God, coming down as a man. And so in essence, this is the picture here, and this is kind of cool. God gave the law, he gave the command, man violated it, God became a man, and he took the punishment that he himself gave, and he was condemned and executed by the very men that were supposed to be condemned and executed themselves for violating the law that God gave. So it's kind of, God gave the law himself, and he took the punishment himself. And he was punished at the hands of the very men, mankind that was supposed to be suffering the punishment that he gave. So that is the gospel, is that the gospel of salvation is now we can be freed from the bondage of the flesh that we're in, and we can live and walk in holiness and not give in to the desires of the flesh or those drives that we have. We can have, again, once again, in a sense, the governor, that'd be the Holy Spirit, that can give us that power to overcome. So that's a short, very brief lesson on that. I know there's a whole lot more we could go into, but it gets a little deeper. And that is what separates Christianity from any other religion in the world. You look at any other religion, biblical Christianity, and that's why last week we talked about the Bible and how important it is, because that's our foundation. Yeah. When you take that away, it becomes a house of cards. Because biblical Christianity is the only one that says you can't do it on yourself. God does it all, and we can rest in the fact that it's finished. There's nothing else for us to do. And this is what Paul said, and I believe it was Romans chapter 5, when he gave Abraham as an example. And if you go back in Genesis and you read it, God told Abraham, I'm going to make of you a nation where your descendants are going to be like the sand of the seas and the stars of the heavens. At that time, Abraham, his name was Abram. He didn't have any kids. They didn't have, and so they didn't actually have any kids until they were much older, beyond the physical capability where they should have been able to have kids. But Abraham believed God. He had no physical evidence to suggest what God was, that any of this was going to happen. He had no idea, no way of knowing. And later on, if you read the story of Abraham, he tried to do it on his own and it didn't work. But Abraham believed God. Just that little act of believing what God said, accepting it for what he said, was enough that God imputed righteousness to Abraham. He called Abraham righteous for that act of just believing what God said. So when it comes to the salvation in the New Testament, when Jesus died on the cross, the last thing he said was, you remember what he said?
It is finished.
It's finished. It's paid. The debt is paid. It's over. It's all done. And all we need to do is just accept it and believe what God said about it, and that's it. So that's what separates biblical Christianity from every other religious system in the world. So that's a brief history of sin, salvation overview. I hope you take more time to study it out and learn for yourself. And now we're going to move on to our next segment. Right? You ready?
Let's get personal.
Well, yeah, but before that, we're going to have a word from our sponsor.
Oh, yes, sponsor. We have another sponsor.
We have another sponsor this week.
Sweet.
So are you looking for something to do this early fall with your family?
Sure.
Have a good time. Go meet new people. Maybe see some old friends.
Absolutely.
Have a good time. Listen to some great speakers.
For sure.
Then you need to head to the booming metropolis. I'm just kidding about that. Of Pulaski. How do you say it?
I think it's Pulaski,
Mississippi. It's for the Elalon Family Camp.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
September 28th through October 1st.
Right. So you can check out the website there at, let me see.
I know it's on Facebook.
It's on Facebook. MississippiShindig.com. Yep.
Well, I think they have a Elalon Family Camp in there too now.
Right. We're changing not me.
You're kind of part of it.
They're changing the name from Shindig to Elalon Family Camp. You can check out, there was just a video on Facebook kind of explaining that a little bit and some questions and things like that. All kinds of information. Go check it out. Yeah. And you'll have a great time. It's a lot of fun. This is the 7th year that it's been going on at the same place. So check it out.
Yeah.
And the Elalon Family Camp, it's MississippiShindig.com.
Yep. And thank you for that sponsor.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate our sponsors.
That's right. It's very important. All righty. So now we're going to get into the personal. Let's get personal. You ready for this?
Sure.
All righty.
We had some daughters get married, didn't we?
We did. This has been quite the year for us.
Yeah. We have 5 children, only 2 daughters, and they decided to get married 2 months from each other.
And moved to Virginia.
Less than 2 months, actually. It was a week shy.
Yeah. So, yeah.
2 months, and they both moved to Virginia, 30 minutes from each other, which is really sweet.
Yeah.
I think.
And then we just got news. Well, our second oldest son, he got engaged, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. July 26th.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we just found out this morning that...
Oh, drum roll. Is there a drum roll in there somewhere? The wedding date is...
October... I don't remember.
20th?
20th. It was supposed to be... The big news about that was we thought it was going to be February. They moved it up to October. Yes. So that's good news.
Yeah, they found a venue and...
Yeah.
Going to go ahead.
So that's exciting. We're excited for them.
He's all set up, so...
Yeah, and some of you may know, if you watched the Mike Charleston show, that we were flipping a house. We moved from Florida to Louisiana. We bought a house to fix it and flip it. and that is sold, not 100%. We're just waiting on the closing date. That's done. In the meantime, we're buying another house to live in, but we're kind of renting it right now until we close on the other house, and then we'll pay for that house. But so the last couple of weeks, it's been moving, cleaning, and painting.
Scrubbing, like it.
Yeah, the house needed some freshening up a bit.
That's a nice way to say it. They sort of left in a hurry, I think.
Yeah.
And they had animals. So.
And they seem to have liked dark colors.
Dark, dungeon colors.
We like bright colors, cheery colors. So we've been doing a lot of painting.
4 coats of paint, actually, between primer.
Some of it,
between primer and paint.
Yeah, when you go from a really dark color to a light color, it takes a bit to cover that up.
A lot of painting. And scrubbing. Did we mention the scrubbing?
Yeah, there's been a lot of scrubbing on that one. So a lot of scrubbing.
Yeah. But we're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, we have.
Getting up to snuff. And we talked about moving to Virginia, actually. Before this all came down.
Before finding this house, we talked about Virginia.
But I really feel like God directed us straight to this house because it was one that wasn't on MLS yet, and we thought it was.
Right, yeah, we thought it was another house that's
the one up the street was for sale, and that was the one on MLS. Actually, Sarah sent us that one, and we thought we were looking at it, but we looked in the dark, and it was this one.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4
houses down, yeah. And we thought that was it. Thankfully, it was empty because...
Yeah, we were looking in the windows.
The one on MLS was empty when we looked at it online. So we're like, no, it's empty. We'll go in and look at it.
Well, we didn't go in. We just walked around.
But we shined our lights through and went to the windows and we're looking in.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it was empty.
Yeah. It looked empty from when we pulled in the driveway. You could tell it.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Is that it for us?
I think so.
It's kind of it. I mean, I could talk about the weddings all day long, but...
Well, yeah.
We'll leave out all those details because we're getting close to the end here.
Yeah. So the next thing is we're going to do some little known facts.
Some questions. And the first one's little known facts. And I'm going to ask you, what's a little known fact about you, hun?
Well, I have a BS degree. Now, some of you are probably thinking, yeah, I could tell. But what that means is a Bachelor of Science in biology. So not what you were thinking, but Bachelor of Science. That was in 92. I graduated from college. So long time ago. Yep. Many moons ago.
That's 1992, not 1892.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Had to clarify that one. Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I did try to get a job actually with the state of Florida as a biologist, and they wanted a master's degree. Some departments wanted both, a master's degree and 3 years experience, and then some wanted 3 years of experience. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I just finished college. How am I going to get experience?
Yeah.
But anyway, and what about you? Little known fact.
You're not going to tell the other one? You're going to wait on that?
Yeah, I'll wait on the other one.
Okay. Little known fact about me is that when I was 7 years old, I had spinal meningitis and almost died. I was in the hospital for almost 4 weeks, and almost died. I had bacteria in my spine from something. I don't know. I grew up in Louisiana.
Probably the water.
Probably that. Could be the water. No, I don't know. We did live out in the country. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I have no clue.
You were up in northern Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Monroe. I don't know.
Shreveport, some in that area.
Yeah, so I don't know how I got it, but that's a little known fact about me. Not very many people know that.
And you kind of started flipping out from the fever, right? If I remember the story.
Before I went to the hospital, I got delirious and I was all over my grandmother's house, and that's how they realized something was wrong.
All right, and you have a blind question?
Well, this is back to you now. You have a blind question for me.
Well, why don't you go first?
You're supposed to be thinking about.
I was going to ask you which one is your favorite child, but I figured since Riley's in the room here, we shouldn't ask that.
We don't play favorites anyway. We did see someone play favorites growing up, and that was, or not growing up, but in our early marriage, we were like.
We were still growing up.
We were, yeah. God raised us, right? That's what we say sometimes. Okay, my question is for you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. How much do you adore and love your wife? Just kidding. That's not the question. I already know that one. Okay, so my real question to you is actually a question you asked me one time recently. You're going to love this. You love to think about all these things.
Yeah.
You'd probably have a different answer if you think about it for a bit. But on the spot, if money was not an object, knowledge was not an object.
I can't answer this.
I know you hate these. Okay. Knowledge is not, it doesn't matter. You know everything. You have all the money you need. So see yourself there.
I know where this is going.
What would you do? And where would you go?
Actually, where would I go? That's kind of easier to answer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't go anywhere out of the country.
Okay.
Well, maybe. I just saw a video yesterday. They were in Scotland. That looked amazing. So maybe. But what would I do? I don't know. I'd probably do something like I'm doing right now, to be honest.
Wow. Living the dream, huh?
Well, I mean, doing a show like this or something.
Got you.
If it didn't matter.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay.
Probably. Or do a lot of fishing.
That's too limited. That I need more because this is like a lot of money and a lot of knowledge, and you have everything.
That's probably what I would do.
Oh, that's good.
What would you do?
That's good. No, that's not fair.
Why not?
You can pull that question out another day. You're supposed to be coming up with a question for me, dear.
I know. I can't. These questions are hard.
This was your idea, by the way.
No, this was your idea.
It was my idea?
Yeah, it was your idea.
It probably was.
It was. Why would I come up with this?
That sounds like me.
Yeah. All right. I don't know.
Okay, fine. I'll answer that question then.
Yeah, you answer that question.
I would like to do a ton of things. I definitely would want to do some kind of ministry for after seeing the Sound of Freedom film. I definitely want to do some kind of ministry, and I still would love to do that if God would use us in that area for assisting somehow. That's just nightmarish to think about what is happening. Sorry, I didn't mean for this to take a turn. But,
well, no, that's... Yeah.
But just thinking about what's happening to these people all the time. I'd really love to see a lot of that come to an end and be able to be an advocate or a financial backer or supporter, something.
That's a better answer than I gave.
Physical. But that's on the ministry side. I wasn't specific. I have a whole lot of things I would like to do.
Well, yeah, true.
Like on the dream side, I would like to have maybe an event venue where we could have all kinds of events, not just camps, but weddings and all kinds of other things. And then maybe even you have some kind of a barbecue stand or whatever.
That would be fun.
Because I know you're always good you like to do that kind of stuff. So anyway, and a lot of other things. I have all kinds of business ideas that I would do and like to do and start and
well, you know what would be kind of fun to do? I think have a little cafe where the menu may change, or you may have a special or something that...
A spatial,
sorry. I'm starting to pick up the local language.
Country now.
I was hoping you wouldn't catch that.
I think you meant special.
Special. I'm special.
That's good, honey. And I'm country now. Is that like my cement?
Yeah, the cement. Yeah, that's
Shortly after we moved here, I was talking about the cement board. And I said, cement.
Cement. We got to get some cement.
Back to my roots.
We got to get that special cement board.
Back to my roots, right?
No, to have a little cafe where you can make something different each day or something like that. But it's small enough where you could just be more personable with the patrons and stuff. I think that'd be kind of fun.
I think there's one near here. We visited like that.
Something
like that. They're only open three days a week, but yeah.
Yeah, it's true. So, yeah.
Something like that would be great.
Fun.
Yeah.
So
that would be. I like that.
I'd have it a little cleaner than the one we went to.
I think you're thinking of something different.
Are you talking about the one in Clinton?
No.
Oh.
was talking about the one.
Oh, yeah. At the church.
Yeah, attached.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun. So,
Yeah, that's a really cute one.
Sorry, I don't. Coming up with these questions is so hard for me because I don't know.
Well, I am not going to write your questions.
I know. I'll work on it. It's just.
I'll remind you throughout the week.
Yeah, that's right.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Alrighty. Oh, yeah. There's your questions right there.
Those were from last week.
Oh, they are.
I already asked those. I couldn't find that card to write it on this week.
Yeah. So in the moving, we're running out of time here, but this real quick, it's kind of funny. Things get scattered. And last night we sat down. We're trying to get all our notes together and keep things organized. And we thought we had a pretty good handle on it.
I thought we had a great session of note taking and we got all these great ideas down on these cards, and
yeah,
I went and lost them between last night and this morning.
Yeah. With no idea where they're at. They're probably in some random box somewhere.
It's because I wrote that question on it and I didn't want you to see it.
So, alrighty. So I guess that's about it. A wrap.
What's that it? What's that it? Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. So here's something to chew on. I like to have these little sayings. Remember, the mind can only absorb what the rear end can endure.
Thank you.
Yeah, words to live by there. All righty. Until next time.